All right, fantastic. Okay, so thanks everybody. Welcome to this Meridian West webinar, in which we'll be exploring how AI is changing client listening. So given the recent proliferation of generative AI sites and in particular free-to-use large language models, there's a growing interest, of course, in how we can apply AI within research to both drive efficiency and improve quality of insights. So today we'll be exploring how AI is changing client listening in particular, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jonathan Mulligan, Ethan
Hi.
Murphy, and Illich Real. So Jonathan is a associate director here at Meridian West. Ethan is a consultant at Meridian West, and Illich is the co-founder and CEO of Rubiklab AI. And we have some real kind of internal expertise from John and Ethan on the subject, and of course Illich's real expertise as well. So yeah, thanks very much for coming. So I think how we're going to start this webinar is by reflecting a bit. So 7 months ago, we ran a webinar looking at demystifying AI within professional services marketing. And so I thought to start today's conversation, it'd be interesting to reflect on our predictions around how AI would transform professional services marketing, with particularly looking at what was said around client listening. So I think there are three kind of key outcomes from that webinar. We said that AI would reduce time and costs of manual document review. We also said that AI would, enable processing of unstructured feedback and qualitative data much more efficiently. And also it would enrich system data by integrating information from multiple sources. So first of all, John, where do you think we are 7 months on? What's the reality now?
I think the reality is that those three items that you've identified were on the nose. I think we certainly have seen, particularly the first two, about reducing time and costs of document review, of unstructured feedback and qualitative data processing, particularly of the way that Meridian West are using AI. Those two spring to mind, and I think we're probably a bit further along on the journey with those two items. I think we're a bit less. I think we're probably still almost on the starting blocks with the enriching of system data and integration from multiple sources. But I think the big thing that's happened, for certainly the way I'm thinking, is more a conceptual change about how we think about AI, and it's become less about it being a project, a discrete thing, something that businesses do, that will have a start and end point. I think journey is the operative word, but a continuous one, and we'll see continuous improvement. The models will continue to improve, become more sophisticated, do more things. We're already seeing that the large language models, things like ChatGPT, are starting able to process quant data now. You can generate images. So the use cases will grow. I think the other thing that will happen is that these AI will become completely integrated in the way that people do business. It will become just another tool like Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word. There will become less of it won't be something seen as unusual, strange, new. Will become a core component of operational processes. And I think that's certainly where we are at Meridian West, exploring a number of different initiatives, working with Illich at Rubiklab in particular. Maybe Illich, you want to come in and say a bit more?
Yes, sure. So I think we can give ourselves a little bit of credit for our former selves 7 months ago. I think point 1 and 2, those were not like a very risky type of prediction, but they really materialized. I read somewhere, and I sort of made this quote mine, but that 2023 was a year of excitement or slash curiosity with regards to AI within business context. But 2024 will be the year of deployment. And I think there is a lot of truth in this. And we are trying to lead the way in this integration of AI within a professional services type of context by working with Meridian West and in the type of initiatives that we've done. So point 1 and 2, I completely agree. They are becoming a reality. And the fact that we mentioned this as like an obvious fact now shows the sort of progress that has been done over the last 7 months. The third point, so enriching like the proprietary internal data with external sources. So here the devil is in the details, really. So in terms of thinking, so targeting, collecting the right type of data, bringing both the volume, but also the diversity in type of data. And by this, we mean the diversity of sources, but also the diversity of form of data. So long form, very structured type of reports, for example, versus more commentary style of data that can also be very relevant when we look at reputation or sector type of data, and even to a degree looking at reputation and trend with there is probably a place for social data integration as this idea of data diversity and targeted data volume as a complement to internal data. So we already do a lot of this, but not in professional services outside of our partnership with Meridian West, like in the FMCG sector, for example. This is already like technically this can be done, but of course with professional services, the approach has to be very domain driven, if you want. So I think this is why we are advancing cautiously and with our joint expertise on this.
Brilliant, thank you. I just want to pause and say that if you do have a question at any point, please do drop it in the Q&A. Hopefully we'll have a bit of time before we get to the half hour where we can ask the panel these questions. So yeah, please do drop a question in if you have one. I think Illich, just picking up on one of your kind of points there about 2024 being the year of deployment. I really like that. So I think something that we've spoken about previously is that AI in client listening is allowing us to sort of shift from a project-based approach to a knowledge-based approach. Could you talk a little bit more about sort of what that means and why AI is allowing us to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is such a key aspect and an added value. So initially, like in when most new technology come on stage, if you want, we're looking at how can we do what we normally do much quicker, much faster, cheaper, more volume, maybe more targeted. But here, the changes that we are started to implement go beyond those gains, which are really key. I mean, to be able to be quicker, more efficient, cheaper, etc. This is great. I mean, who doesn't want this? Yeah. But now we can actually change the way we operate and not just collect this different type of data within one environment, but start thinking not on a project base. So, for example, right now we are running a campaign where we have, say, 70 or 80 different internal transcript for a client, and we are bringing all these so that we can segment the data and have like a very clean type of reporting, do individual summaries, but then look at the overall trends and takeaways across the whole data set, which is mostly driven by AI and can even give some recommendation and not just like a descriptive type of analysis, which is great. But then one massive pain point that we hear from our client is we do all this work, we collect all this data, we find this very great nugget of information, but then maybe 1 month down the line, one of our partners is coming and say, oh, I need to know what's happening within this subsector, within this location, and then suddenly panic strikes, like, oh, we need to go back to all the transcript, we need to read all these, and you kind of have some sort of almost like the muscle memory that something happened and there was something there, but you need to go and dig and read, and you need to make sure that you have all the pieces together. So now we can come to a point where instead of doing it on a per project basis, we can continuously bring this data in, continuously update the analysis. And we've created this feature, and I know other companies in other industries are doing sort of similar things where you can actually talk to the data.
Yeah.
And you can ask, you can set your parameters and ask what happened within this specific subsector, within this specific time frame, and what was the evolution, what was the key takeaways now, and what does this mean today?
Yeah.
And this is really key, because the natural reflex would be, oh, we need either to go in panic mode and retrieve the information, or we need maybe to do like a quick turnaround, like do a couple of call interviews with some of our contacts within this sector to sort of get the updated type of information. And now suddenly you can go back to your partner on the day, if not in the hour, really. And that's a game changer.
Brilliant. And Ethan, I think, thanks, Illich. I think, for me, it seems like almost a bit of a mindset shift from listening to clients, transcribing what the clients are saying, analyzing the data, drawing out key insights, and then messaging back to the firm. But now it's almost sort of shifting from that client listening to client intelligence, where you're not just looking at client feedback, but also, other sources, and there's that data diversity. Ethan, do you want to just talk to that? Because I know you've been sort of looking into that quite a lot, and how we're sort of developing, something to sort of help firms with that.
Yeah, of course. I don't think this is something that is necessarily new in terms of what clients are after. I think there's always been a want to make client listening more strategic, to gather more insights on kind of opportunities and growth areas. I think what AI is helping with here is making this kind of more feasible for clients to be able to access, so they can kind of analyze this data, but not just the client data they collect, but also kind of data from a variety of different sources, and build this kind of intelligence hub, as we were saying. I think back to a few cases where we work with kind of a lot of firms and their client listening programs, and we run quite a lot of global insight programs. And one client in particular, they'd had quite great success collecting information, kind of NPS, satisfaction, those typical kind of common metrics, and benchmarking those. But this year they really wanted to, okay, how can we look at growth? How can we look at the clients at risk? So they did these kind of output packs, which they sent back to the company with, this client's at risk of leaving, they don't want to do new services, they scored low on NPS or satisfaction, they're at risk. How can we really kind of defend these clients? And actually a lot of the internal teams came back and gave loads of information, like, this client's actually kind of opening a branch in a new area, hence that's why it doesn't need the service anymore. Or this client, doesn't actually spend a lot with us, or it's a very new client. So there was actually quite a lot of context and information that, we didn't miss, but we didn't actually have access to, and actually explained quite a lot of the insights that were collected. So I think AI, going back to your question, I think what AI is really helping us do is, it means that client listening programs don't necessarily have to just focus on the client data that we collect within that program, but actually we can draw insights from loads of different sources of information. And I think the main two kind of big sources that AI is helping us attach is kind of CRM data for one. Obviously CRM data I think it's been quite heavily underutilized in client listening. A lot of clients that we work with, they find it hard to kind of integrate this information within these programs. I think normally because it's either unmanageable, it's kind of across a variety of different softwares or documents. People don't really have the time to kind of pull this all together. And I think, as Illich was saying, what AI can quite cleverly do is really manage these kind of documents and pull out actually all the bits that are important. It's not a manual process where someone has to go in and clean this. And this can be kind of really extremely valuable for understanding all these insights. I think looking even further as well, what the tools that we're working with now are starting to be able to do is they can kind of scan websites and kind of external sources of information. So, company reports, news releases, case studies, even social media, if that's appropriate. But these kind of advanced capabilities means that clients can integrate wider data information, which is not only live. So as Illich was saying, it's not only a kind of one-off project, it's something that is kind of always growing, but also we can make sure this information comes from kind of trusted and kind of reliable sources as well. So I think that is what we're seeing at the moment, is the push away from just a kind of project of client listening where we do, a survey, analyze those surveys, but actually how we kind of contextualize this information within wider data and actually we build this kind of growing hub.
Yeah, brilliant. I think, sorry, go on, Illich.
Yeah, actually, yes, and a very concrete impact of all this is not just the comfort and the access of the data and all the great things that comes with it, but I think it does this positive feedback loop. I know it's always a challenge for the different firms to get their internal stakeholders to really buy in with those listening programs, because one, it's a process. And then even if you engage in the process, then we know that to be able to get something out of it requires a lot of, man hour and brain power and analysis. And you may think twice, because you know that if you ask a very specific question, this will lead to 10, 15, 20, 30 hours of work to give you a proper answer. So from the moment that all this becomes much more integrated and much more flowing and much more dynamic, then the direct consequence of this, we'd hope, would be to get much more engagement internally and much more buy-in by all the senior stakeholders to actively contribute to those programs.
So it's almost like that, the more integration we can get from multiple different data sources, then of course the richer the insights are going to be, the more trustworthy they're going to be, and then that's going to only help sort of internal buy-in. Correct. Brilliant. So I think what we're going to talk about next is around sort of one of the ways in which AI has really transformed the sort of practical parts of client listening so far. We touched on it earlier, but around sort of the rapid qualitative trend analysis. John, is this something that you want to come on here? I know, you're very experienced. I think you were telling me earlier today, 20 years in the market research space. So you've really seen the kind of whole journey of dealing with qualitative data.
Absolutely. I'm smiling because I was just reminded that it's coming up to my 20th birthday of market research. I started in the industry 2004 March, a little startup market. Not that we thought of ourselves as a startup in the way that we think of startups now, but it was a small agency dealing with social research data, a lot of work with homeless people, that kind of work, and we did a lot of qualitative interviewing. Dictaphones, those of us who are old enough remember, with tapes, analog tapes. And I think what's relevant about that was just thinking about how we structured the research and the programs and at what time we allowed. And we used to allow an hour of transcription time for every 10 minutes of recording. And Ben, one of the directors of Meridian, and I went to a employee retreat just before Christmas for one of our clients, and we were doing a series of interviews. We did 10 interviews with members of their staff at their annual strategy retreat, and it was off the back of a client listening program. And it just struck me just how much AI has transformed the qualitative research process. We in total we had about 10 hours of audio, and so if we think back to 2004, I would have had to have booked in 60 hours of human transcription time for that, and that was just to get the audio done, not in counting the analysis time, reading that, pulling the themes together. But Ben and I were able to feed that audio that we collected into AI, get an AI transcription, feed that into the intelligence hub, and come out with, by the end of the day, some really clear themes that were emerging from the research, and present back on the day to the senior stakeholders. I think it's just really quite striking, just the rapidity of the research that allows, and then it allows much swifter action. I mean, it's not perfect, of course. Yeah. This AI, and it can't be done in isolation. And I think but it is a tool, just like any tool. It can't be done left on its own to its own devices. We need the human operator who's skilled, understands the research domain that we're in has the subject matter to supplement what the AI can produce. But there's a real benefit in that speed of movement, I think.
Absolutely. I think something else as well, John, is around the kind of it's not just the kind of labor saving, is it? It's also the kind of objectivity that using AI affords you.
Absolutely, and I think it's consistency. I mean, I think AI has of course its own biases. It's programmed by humans, so that but those biases are becoming more and more understood, and over time I think will start to be minimized. But I thought what was interesting about what the AI produced on that day was that it put much greater emphasis on the positive comments amongst our clients' employees, whereas Ben and I think maybe as our roles of consultants, often looking in from a change management perspective, looking at things for improvement, we kind of had not put as much emphasis on those positive thought points that perhaps a more neutral observer like the AI tool could bring to bear. So I thought that was an interesting thing that we discovered.
I think as well, I really like your message there that, whilst these are, affording us huge benefits, that it's really important that it's not, it is a partnership. It's not just the AI in isolation, and that it needs someone with the relevant expertise, subject matter expertise, knows how the AI works to actually quality control. And I think that's where kind of, we'll see lots of value from these models.
Absolutely.
So, great. I think we've got 8 minutes left, and as I said earlier, please do drop a question if you do have one in the Q&A box, and we can read that out at the end of the session. But I think something that we did want to touch on is some of the concerns there are, when we speak to some of our clients and prospects, of course, because sort of AI and how sort of it proliferated so quickly, there are numerous sort of info security concerns. So I think Illich, as a real expert in the space, I'd be really interested to hear your views on how confidential client data can be protected when using AI, and what sort of security measures should we be putting in place?
Yes, absolutely. And I always speak with our developers and technical teams saying that we need to be careful not to hide behind the technicality of things. Like not everything around AI has to be technical. A lot of it has to be about engagement. A lot of it has to be about workflow, about thinking of, to the earlier point, how we integrate the human within the workflow and within the structure. So, to answer with some concrete points, we some of the things we intuitively know, because when we work with data, the same applies with data within an AI type of environment. So you can look at like the very strong data encryption. You can look at different type of access control and authentication as well. Anonymization, even data masking, but also in line with GDPR. Like, what do you actually need to keep within your data? Like always approach it. And this is not technical. This is how you approach the topic of data. Like for example, if we transcribe some video interviews, once the transcription is done, we delete the video from the interview straight away, because we don't need to store people's video into our program. So a lot of it is also good practice in line with all the spirit of GDPR, for example. A lot of it is about common sense and good practice. But beyond, and we can cover more technical point, but beyond all this, I think one key aspect is about and that was the name of our previous webinar, like demystifying AI, really. Finding the way to engage with it, which is going to be relevant to your firm, to your organization, to your workflow, to your values, and to get an engagement by all the stakeholders, from a strategic type of perspective, but also from a more operational type of perspective. So quicker, faster, cheaper, more convenient part. But also, what does this mean for our clients, for our firm? How does this impact our strategy, our positioning, etc.? Like all those big questions and enablers are also very powerful considerations.
Fantastic. Thanks, Illich. So we've got about 4 minutes left, and we've got a question in the chat. So I thought it would be good to sort of end on this, which is all around sort of what is next for AI and client listening. I think I just sort of thinking about that question myself. I was recently at a kind of an AI event, looking at the future of AI and how it's being used in businesses, sort of similar to the webinar today. And one of the panel guests was asked a question similar to this, and will sort of AI be another sort of tech trend flash in the pan, a bit like the metaverse? And he actually sort of was mentioning that he saw kind of the analogy he saw is AI is a bit like electricity. Before electricity, businesses, were just, businesses, and then electricity came along and no business said, oh, we are an electricity enabled business. Every business is an electricity enabled business. And he was sort of saying that he sees AI in the same way. Before we know it, very soon, businesses will be AI enabled, and that's just because sort of that's the way the world will work. So sort of thinking about that, I'll come to you first, Ethan. What do you think, what's next for AI and client listening?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, a lot of the things that we've discussed, the kind of efficiency points and the benefits there, I think companies are going to have to kind of use and develop, because, like you said, it's going to become something that becomes ingrained in the ways we work. And maybe it already is. Maybe, I guess we don't always realize when we're using AI. But I think in a future-looking way, we've done a lot of sessions recently where we've kind of asked about the perfect AI tool. If it could help you with anything, what would it do? And what we've seen as a kind of futuristic outlook is that actually, rather than kind of gathering and reporting on insights, what the AI is capable of is predicting insights, taking it like data that we've already imagined and being like, okay, here is a future risk based off the models that we've set up. Here's a future opportunity. So maybe going like beyond just reporting data and actually using data to kind of make those kind of predictive insights, which I think is really exciting for client listening and all types of research, really.
Absolutely. John, what would you say in terms of the future of AI for client listening?
I thought it was interesting, something that Ethan just said about we may not know that we're using it. And I think that's potentially, we're already seeing that, Microsoft become the most valuable company in the world, largely off the back of their investments in AI. And I think we're more or less all familiar with the Word products. There were already all of the AI tools that Microsoft have invested in starting being rolled out. To pick up on Illich's point about the year of deployment, I think Microsoft are doing a lot more this year. We're already starting to see predictive text completion in Word and summary documents. So I think that's going to be something that we see, is that the integration of AI into the way that we do business, the way we do research, will become so seamless that it's no longer noticeable.
And hopefully we'll all see sort of lots of wild increases in productivity and efficiency off the back of those integrations, John.
I think it will allow us to do more. I think there's lots of really exciting things potentially. One of the things that's always been a little bit of a problem with online research in particular is the quality of verbatim comments that we receive from respondents. I'd be really excited to see if platforms like Qualtrics, some of the other big survey platforms, can start integrating chat box type functionality within surveys, so that we can start enriching the verbatim responses that we get back from participants at the source, not just relying on AI to code them up afterwards.
That's really interesting. Great, thanks, John. And I know we've just gone to 1:30, so very quickly, Illich, sorry to not give you a huge amount of time, but what would you say is the sort of the biggest prediction, if you like?
I can be quite brief. So the first one is that large language models are very good with words, but not so good with numbers. So I think in 2024 they will up their game and they will actually learn how to count properly. Like we don't use AI for counting right now. We use more traditional statistical type of logic. So but LLM will learn how to count properly in 2024. That's a prediction, and you can see the implications of this. And to more point, the second point is exactly what Ethan mentioned. So to move from a very descriptive type of implementation to a more prescriptive, which we already do, to a more predictive, which is like really where all the value will come. And the final point is the move away from larger models and for smaller open source specialist type of model to start getting more and more traction within specific industries, within the professional services sector for sure. So I'm not sure if that's a 24 or 24/25, but my instinct is that this is coming.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Ethan, Illich, and John. Perhaps in another 7 months, we need to do another one of these webinars and see where those predictions are. But yeah, thank you very much for everybody else also attending. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. I certainly did. And yeah, we hope to see you soon.